You're listening to The Hurt Locker, the podcast that opens the door on men's mental health. And for today's guest, we have none other than the anarchic Andy Zapp. Andy, welcome.
Hello, nice to be here.
Thank you for joining us and thank you for accepting our invitation. How are you today?
Good, always good. It's always good to get up. It's always good to wake up. It's just, life's great. Yeah.
Well, at least that tells you that you're alive.
Yes. Yeah. I am. No, great. Just the usual, like my dad said, don't get old. And at 76, I'm kind of still good, mate, though. Yeah. Really. Yeah.
Good.
That's great.
That's interesting you telling me that. And I generally don't do much research as such, and I'm going to dive straight in now. But I saw that you were well received at the Edinburgh Fringe.
Yeah.
Was that 2011?
No, that was last couple of years.
Oh, okay. But when was the first time?
I've been going there for I've been going there for about 8-9 years, doing odd spots. Doing half-hour shows with people, some compilation shows. But for the past 2 years, I took my own show up there called Sex and Drugs and Getting Old.
Sex and Drugs and Getting Old, okay. Something for the teenagers who may be listening. So, as always, who is Andy Zapp?
Who is he?
Yes.
Well, my real name, my proper name, because Andy Zapp's my stage name, I'm Polish heritage, so my name's Andrzej Mariusz Zapletal. It's a Czechoslovakian name, but the Czechs sort of moved over to the Ukraine after the First World War. Some of my family did, and they kind of ended, and it was part of Poland then. Now it's part of Russia, or, it's a separate country, but sort of aligned with, it's a nation state now, but before it was part of Poland, the Ukraine, and my dad was from Lvov or Lviv, as they call it. But yeah, I'm Polish heritage. They came here after the war in 47, 46. And I was born in Wales. So I'm like a cockney tafpole.
Cockney tafpole, okay. That's original. And so what was growing up like for you?
Well, it was, it's funny with the immigrant family. They all the family came over, and I know they went, the transit camp was in Wales, in North Wales. There was a big all the Polish soldiers went there. And then from there, they got sort of farmed out to all around the country. As far as I know, I don't know this, but first we went to Scotland and then we moved down to Brixton. So we moved to Brixton in the, I was born in 48. So I think in about 49, 50, the whole family they got a house together down in Brixton, just off of, where was it? Medora Road, just at the back of, just that road opposite Brixton Prison, Jebb Avenue. And then there's a road just down there. And it was around that area. And we lived there for quite a, there was my father, my mother, my father's two sisters, their husbands, his older sister, she had a daughter, my cousin. My grandmother moved in, and then there was my dad's mum and dad had moved over. My mum's parents hadn't got over here. Yeah, my mum's mum and dad hadn't quite come over. They came over about three years later, but we all kind of moved into the house basically in Brixton. We all lived there for about 6 to 7 years, and then the family kind of dispersed. It was good. I really enjoyed it,
What do you remember of it?
Well, it was a laugh, you know what I mean? A lot of cooking, because, being Polish, like my mum would always complain. You could always complain. She'd go and buy some bread, and she goes, Andrew, this bread, it is like cotton wool. This is not bread. And then she'd buy sausages, like they were really shit sausages in the 50s, loads of bread. And she goes, where is the meat? There's no meat in the sausages, And stuff like that. Or the English, they are so cold. If she said it now, I said, yeah, now, because they can't afford the winter fuel allowance now. But she thought, English, they are so cold. And, you know, she had a big downer on Churchill at the time. But they were very kind, you know, they were quite upper middle class, my lot.
Okay.
My grandfather was very wealthy in Poland. On my mother's side, he was one of the biggest butchers in Poland. And like the joke is, when he got to England, he didn't have a sausage, but he got everything kind of. Yeah, he was very wealthy in Poland. He was the largest butcher. And then from my father's side, they were all university educated. My uncle, who was married to my father's sister, he was really high up in the forestry commission. So that means he was kind of, you know, defense of the realm. He had dueling scars and stuff from where he went to military college. And then he got over here and he started making handbags, very successful. He used to make used to supply Harrods and stuff like that. So they were all, it was, and then my father kind of bumbled through. And so, yeah, they were really happy times living there. It was, you know, a lot of, you know, food, Christmas. You know, I always kind of remember Christmases very fondly. And then it kind of, the family split up. Like I say, I say it a lot, you know, I was born into other people's expectations and other people's stories, you know, and I had a kind of, it was interesting, really. My mother was very beautiful, very attractive. Like she was like, I'll talk about it in the one-man show. She was like Gina Lollobrigida, you know, like she was like a starlet, beautiful, beautiful. But, you know, as it transpired, as I kind of grew up, you know, my grandfather, the wealthy one, he was a womanizer and an alcoholic. My mother was an alcoholic. My father, what would you say? He was codependent, and I kind of started rebelling against it, not knowing, you know, that, you know, I was always told that, you know, grown-ups could do anything they liked to you, really, or they could say anything, and you had to kind of suffer it. And it was interesting. But yeah, and they had that kind of, the family did really well, you know. One of my cousins is a millionaire. It was only me that sort of fucked about, and was everybody else in the family kind of quite successful. I'm kind of successful because I've come to, for the past 20 years, I've been, you know, like I've just been happy, and I've always enjoyed, you know, like I kind of realize it's not about the having, it's about the being. And and I'm very sort of content in my own body, you know. Yeah, sometimes I question myself.
Were you an only child?
Yeah, I was, yeah. But when we were in the house, when we lived in Brixton, my cousin...
That wasn't a thing then, was it? Because there must have been, what, 12, 13 of you living in the house under the same roof? So
I had my cousin living there. She was living there. And then there was another couple living upstairs who had a daughter. So it was quite, and the girls were a couple of years older than me. So, but it was always a laugh, you know. We had it was good fun. And then when it kind of started splitting away, and then, you know, I was brought up a Catholic. Okay. So that was a bit, you know. Now I'm a die-in-the-wool atheist now, you know what I'm saying? Okay. But you know, I was brought up a Catholic, Pisces, easily led, and it doesn't matter who by it kind of thing. And I kind of just felt myself pulling away from the control, very controlling. You know, my mother was very controlling. You know, it had to all look good on the outside, and they kind of managed that part of it. Yeah. But it was quite toxic and quite fraught, really. So it did impact on my mental health, you know, especially it was very critical. They were very critical, you know. It was, and my father I remember, like, although with all the, you know, like they say your parents do the best they can with the tools they have, you know what I mean? Well, but as a 5-year-old, 6-year-old child, I did the best that I could with the tools that I could, you know what I mean? And I was quite willful in a lot of ways.
So when was the first time you speak about being willful, and you said that you rebelled? When was the first time you actually can remember recalling
Well, I
rebelling.
kind of remember walking down the road because we moved to Clapham, and I remember my mum said she gave. I had some pocket money, and I wanted to buy this toy gun. And where I was in Clapham, there was a market just down the road, and I wanted to buy it there and then. And my mum says, "Wait till tomorrow, and I'll buy it for you." But I remember thinking, "No, I want it now. I wanted that instant gratification. I want that bloody gun now. I want that cap gun." And I remember having a big blazing row with her, and she did, she did kind of. I went and bought it in the end. You know what I mean? And I could have waited one more day, but I was strong. Yeah, I was strong-willed, but it was always kind of. I was quite naive as well. They kept me in this child place. They'd always. I remember we were around a group of people, and we were in this room, and I remember going in. I was about 6, and this girl was about 6 or 7. We were both about that same age. And then we started kind of fiddling with each other as kids, exploring each other, you know what I mean? And then the girl came in and grasped me up. And it was just like, we're both 2 6-year-olds, right? So we were, and she touched me on the foo-foo and all that. And I'm thinking, oh, for fuck's sake, what's going on? But what made it really awkward, they all, you could see them kind of smiling and laughing, you know what I'm saying? And yet, they were kind of, it was just a kind of, like that. They found it kind of funny, but they were telling me off. They were kind of trying to tell me off. And it was kind of this incongruity,
Yes.
And that, because I called it that inherent wrongness of being. That was kind of I called it, life is the inherent wrongness of being. That's how they bring us up through religion. You're not, you're a sinner, you know what I mean? And that kind of, or you're always kind of wrong-footed even now, you know what I mean? Especially with the stuff around, hate speech and stuff like that. You're kind of wrong. You keep getting wrong-footed in some ways, and you're always falling back and trying to gain ground and that, but you can't, trying to figure it out is kind of it. Well, I'm saying kind of, it is difficult, It
is. It's interesting. It's interesting that experience between you and that girl at age 6. If that was brought up today with 2 children, age 6, there'd be a totally different outcome to it.
Yeah, well, I might have to go and have what's the name? I don't know what it would. Well, it might do. I don't know. It all depends where you are, really, in the world. But
I suppose that's a sign of the times as well.
Yeah, I'm not. It was just a kind of. I always kind of remember that experience. I was trying to make a point, and I can't think what the point was. But,
we'll get to it. Don't worry about that. We'll get to it. So tell me, being an only child, the house was full. Catholic upbringing. But I'm imagining that there was an element of you were spoiled, or am I making assumptions there?
Oh, yeah. Like I would say, I was very lucky. You know what I'm saying? I was very very lucky, looking like as an adult.
Yes.
I joke about it, like we joke about it because people, because I was brought up in the swinging 60s, right?
Okay.
So by the time I was about 14, it was all things were starting to really happen, and I never went hungry. I always, had clean clothes. I always, we lived quite a middle class life, really. So there was because food was always important in the family. Even when we moved away from the house to Brixton, we kind of moved from Brixton. I think we then went to Peckham. We moved out down in Nunhead, and we were renting there. I think I don't know if they bought the house or rented the house, and there my mother's parents lived there, and my father and myself, and my father's parents went with the two sisters, and they moved somewhere else. They moved up to Streatham.
Okay.
So it was us in Peckham, and then from Peckham we moved up to Clapham here. I'm living in the same road, more or less, where I lived when I was a child. So that's kind of a bit,
Okay.
you know, I've lived here for years, but I, you know, like when I look back at my life, you know, I don't know what made it complicated. I suppose, you know, there was all the, you know, the stuff around, you know, you couldn't talk to your parents about sex because they, you know, didn't have the language and that. They were always kind of scared. They were fearful people, and there's no surprise there because my father was, you know, like the communists would come knocking on the door and say, you need to come back to Poland. You know what I mean? And they were under threat of violence, and they said, well, we know where your family is in Poland, because he had some uncles there and cousins and stuff that were kind of known to the Communist Party. It was quite a big deal, really. They would was
that an intimidating, knowing atmosphere for you growing up?
Well, I didn't quite understand it to the full extent. And then you had the other side, you know, because my granddad was like a successful, you know, to be the biggest butcher in Poland, you know, you had to be known. It was a bit of a slippery, you know, like it was pretty dodgy. He was very impressive. He was 6'2", you know, like, and he looked the business, but he was dodge, you know. People would, you know, like he'd be doing deals in the, you know, VAT deals, or I'd call them VAT now, but you know, tax dodges, importing gold, and, you know, a very intelligent man, you know, but it didn't really impact me. So there was always plenty in the house, you know, but I was starved of, I think, was, you know, I didn't feel I was getting the affection and the love, you know. I was in, you know, I was always in a certain place of wrongness, you know, low self-esteem, not enough, you know. I remember, you know, my father would show me something, and he wasn't a good teacher. He was a decent bloke, my dad. You know, I have a lot of fond memories. He, you know, used to laugh a lot. He used to like watching cartoons on the telly and blah, 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 you know. But what can I say about my dad? You know, like, you know, when he tried to teach me things, he wasn't, you know, like, he said, and he'd be standing up, he sort of show me to do, and he said, oh, I've shown you how to do it. You know, I've shown you. And then he'd kind of stand over me, and I'd just go fall to pieces because I can't, you know, like you know, it's the first time I tried. He said, "But I've shown you how to do this. Are you fucking stupid?" And it was kind of, you know, so he didn't
Was he ever violent to you?
No, it wasn't so much violent. It was more threat,
intimidation.
I kind of lived under kind of the yoke of threat, really. My mum telling, sort of pulling her love away. My dad always threatening to. I did get a few licks, I have to admit, with the belt. You know what I mean? When I used to kind of, because as I grew up, you know, like started rebelling, used to go down a snooker or used to bunk off of school a lot. I didn't really like school. I didn't get on. I went to Tulsa Comprehensive, and I never really enjoyed school that much. And then the kind of the 60, you know, my mother started, you know, she sort of went off the rail when her father died. She started drinking a lot, and it all looked all good from the outside. And I remember my mother kind of blaming me for her drinking. I remember her saying to my dad, you know, if only Andrew was a good boy, I wouldn't drink so much. And my dad kind of believed that for a while, you know.
How was that for you, hearing that?
Well, you don't kind of know.
One of the things you said was, you know, you said about your mum was, she kind of withheld her affection towards you.
Yeah, well, how it was withheld, because she was an alcoholic, you know, she'd talk a good game, but she couldn't, you know, the affection, it was a difficult one because I never lacked for anything. There was always plenty of cash going around, you know, they'd cover it up with money, you know, there was always enough food, So, you know, but the kind of, you know, like you couldn't have the conversations and you couldn't really. Oh, and the other thing was, what I realized when I grew up was, you know, they were all university educated, right? So they're Polish, right? Their Polish language, and I didn't realize till I was older, was, you know, they could argue in Polish, whereas I, as a kid, I didn't have the vocabulary to actually, and I only realized when I got to about my 18 or 19 that was one of the quite a big issue, because
Absolutely.
and then I would just argue with them in English, and I would kind of, you know, I could hold my own then, because you know, I'm quite articulate and I'm quite quick and I'm quick on my feet. But it was, you know, trying to argue with them in Polish, I couldn't, you know, express myself. I'd just get angry. I'd get quite frustrated, and they used to find that quite funny. And that goes back to that thing with the young, you know, with this young girl when I was about six or seven. I'm getting quite frustrated, and they're kind of laughing that I'm getting angry, and they're going, "Oh, look, he's getting angry," but they're all kind of just taking the piss.
Yes.
And you know, and they think it's fucking hilarious that I touched her foo-foo, really, on one level, and I'm getting quite angry because I'm kind of getting, and I'm trying to say, well, it wasn't anything, you know, and they're just, so it was that inability to express myself in Polish that kind of was a big part of it as well, you know. So
just on that note then, tell me about identity for you growing up. Did you see yourself as British, or did you see yourself as Polish?
Well, the only time I'm not British is when England play Poland in football.
Okay.
In football, then I'm always thinking, and I don't know why that happens, but then that's kind of, you know, I don't know.
You must have been there. Was it 1973? Jan Tomaszewski in goal.
Yeah, Tomaszewski. Yeah, the cat.
Yeah,
the cat. Yeah, we were there. Yeah, getting on. Who was the manager of the England team then? I'm trying to think who it was. Going fucking mental. He was stopping these goals. It was. Yeah. I remember that. Yeah, absolutely. But it was just, you know, like it was. And then, you know, the swinging 60s came in, and that was just a whole different kind of, you know, ball game.
In what sense?
Well, it was all sex and drugs and rock and roll then. That was proper then, you know.
And did you participate?
Oh, not half. It was all much easier then, you know. Once I remember I was about 17 and a half then, 17, about 17 and a half. By then I started drinking when I was about 15, 14, sort of, you know, having the odd drink and all that. And then by the time I was about 16 and a half, 17 at college, because I went to art school, I went to City and Guilds Art School, I was about 17. You know, the sort of cannabis sort of kicked in there around that time. And but I remember I'm not quite sure how old I was. I was about 17. So by the time I'd had a bit of cannabis, I'd been drinking, and then I was done. I used to knock about in Chelsea, the King's Road. That was the place to be. You know what I'm saying? They're all flower powered, and, you know, like long hair and beetle boots and blah. And I remember being down there, and then this mate of mine, Jay, he got hold of these sleeping tablets, and they were like a Rohypnol kind of a hypnotic tablet, and he had about 4 of them, and there was me and him and these 2 girls, and we all had one each. And it all kind of, you really relaxed, and then, you know, the girls, it was like, you know, it was just nuts. It was just like, you know, we were all disinhibited. And I said, what do they call it? I said, where'd you get them? He said, I got them off my nan. So I've got, all right. And yeah, but what does she get them for? Well, for sleeping, you know, help her sleep and all that. And so about 2 days later, I'm straight down to my doctor's. I'd say her name, Dr. Green now. She's probably dead now. And she was the family doctor, but they were all a bit div in the 60s. They didn't kind of get it. And I've gone down at I'm at college and I can't sleep. And, you know, and I really, you know, God, and I said, my auntie gave me one of these tablets called a Drax, Mandrax, you know. And she goes, oh, Mandrax. So I've gone, yes, I think that's the ones. And then I thought, instead of I thought she'd prescribed me 14 or something. She's prescribed me fucking 60 of these bloody things. So I'm thinking, touch, this is great. You know what I mean? And I was on my way then. And then I kind of realized, you know, that was the route, you know, I took in the 60s, you know, was going to, you know, just going to, you know, and I was dropping out by that time, you know, I was kind of, the Mandrax got in the way. And a friend of mine, Lawrence, who went over to, I think it was about 18 and a half, he'd gone over to Australia for about 3 and he'd come back and he'd had a terrible accident, but he had a big payout. And I was at a stage where they were prescribing crystal meth, ampules of injectable crystal meth to people who took cocaine. So there was this crystal meth going around. And I remember, like, I was at art school then. I was about 18 then, 18 and a half. And they were kind of skim popping, just, you know, not going in the vein, which doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how you get it in your body, really. And stick it up your ass, put it through your nose. It doesn't matter how the drug gets in. But, you know, and they were kind of had these, and they were getting these amps. And then there's crystal meth, you know, you could get sort of ampules of crystal meth, you know, from doctors and stuff. And then and then, you know, going down to Piccadilly at midnight to go and see Boots the chemist, you know, because it was a big deal then. Like, it was all jazzers down there, poets, all kind of upper middle class guys, you know, picking up heroin at midnight, you know. So we were all there, like 18. Yeah, all right, mister, you know, heroin was, I think, you'd get a sixth of, you get 60 milligrams of heroin for £1 then. So it was all kind of a lot of Canadian music. There was a lot of music. Americans would come over, Canadians, because you could get these prescriptions. And then we kind of learned that way, you know.
Yeah.
And it was kind of, so you know, you knew the drugs were good because they came in a box. They had a skull and crossbones on it that said poison, and you knew that's for me, mate. That's the
That was the emblem.
That was
the emblem. That was the gateway.
Yeah, all that shit you get on the street, mate, you know. And kind of, you didn't really have street drugs, really, up until that point. The cannabis you'd get on the black market, you'd get, you'd get LSD and stuff, maybe, but kind of Class A drugs, that was all kind of ramped up and legit coming from doctors.
So you truly tuned in and dropped out, as it were?
Yeah, turned on, tuned in, and yeah. And I kind of enjoyed it. You know, people say, oh, my drug using was hell. What was hell about it? You know, I'd go to Harley Street with 50 quid. You know, oh, so nice to see you, Andrew. How are you today? Oh, well, doctor. You know what I mean? Blah-de, blah-de, blah, you know. And they were prescribed for you. You know what I mean? I did that for years. Although I did a bit, you know, I did a bit of black market stuff, you know, smuggling and stuff like that. But really, all I was kind of tuned into was kind of drug doctors, you know, private doctors. And, well, they still exist today. If you've got money.
Of course they do. Of course they do.
You know what I'm saying? So I kind of,
yeah.
So it wasn't hell. My drug wasn't hell, but it kind of, you know, you take drugs and it stops you developing in a lot of ways. Although it kind of, I was at the festival last year, and like, I've been clean now for coming up for 26 years now. I was 7 years in. I think I stopped when I was 39, 40. Stayed clean for 7 years. Then I relapsed for 4 years, and I'm now clean around 26 years. You know,
do you drink?
No, I don't do. No, I don't drink. No, don't drink. Don't smoke. Don't do nothing. You know what I mean?
So how do you get your natural highs then? Is it just a love of life?
Yeah, life's great. You know what I mean? It's just I enjoy taking responsibility for I am the problem. So that's always good. You know, it's always good to know that I'm the problem at any given time, really. It's nobody else's fault. It's kind of me, really, now. You know what I mean? And this guy I met last year, I'm trying to think of his name. So I can see if I can dig him up on my phone. But because I do 12-step fellowship, like AAs and NAs and stuff. I like it. I enjoy the whole kind of culture of it.
What do you get from it?
Well, I get fellowship. All my mates who are down the West End, you know, they all started going to meetings. So we're all my mates that I used with up the West End for all those years, they all kind of turned to the fellowships, you know what I'm saying? So we kind of, so that was great. That was really good. You know, I just enjoy, you know, the only requirement for membership is a desire not to use, you know, and that's that's the thing. I'm not into God. I'm an atheist. I don't kind of believe in a higher power or anything like that, but I do believe in the power of the group. I do talk to myself in the kitchen, you know what I mean? Go, oh, thanks, you know, thanks for this. You know what I mean? I'm express gratitude in different ways, you know. And, but yeah, so I find, you know, like the whole I still go to meetings now. I still do 2 or 3 meetings a week. And I'm still involved in the fellowship, and you know, and all my mates are still there. You know, I've got friends who are 35 years clean now. You know, so I'm 20, coming up for 26 this year. So if I hadn't have relapsed, I would have been 26, 30. Yeah, I would have been 37 years clean. You know, I'm an old timer, and I like carrying the message, you know, because people do turn their lives around, you know.
What's the message?
Well, the message that, you know, if you put down, you know, if you put the drugs down, you know, do a little bit of step work, you know, have a desire not to use, you know, you won't use because you'll get, you know, like the thing about the fellowships is you don't, you know, like you go to a drug agency, you've got to give them your name, your address, where do you live, how long, they're blah, 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 blah. There, all you have to do is turn up at a meeting and kind of admit that you have a problem, and people will support you. People really, you know, what I found really helpful about it, and this friend of mine, Ali, I remember her being at Brixton meeting and she was sharing, and she's gone, you know, I'd just like to thank all the people that bought me a cup of tea, a cup of coffee, who gave me a hug, who come to my house and picked me up and took me to a meeting, who took me for something to eat and showed me some kindness. You know what I mean? Unconditional love.
It's like that, esprit de corps, that band of brothers and sisters coming together, sharing stories, sharing a history, sharing themselves.
Yeah, it's kind of, it's just quite wonderful. It has a structure, you know, like I think, you know, because there's no kind of, you know, well, you know, there's no form for, you can't, you know, the good thing about any of these fellowships is they can't sling you out.
True.
You know, they can't, you're barred, you know, you'd have to do something really terrible. You'd have to get, you know, I've known people who've become treasurers of groups and meetings, and they've stole all the money. We don't really care. All right, then, mate. All right, you fucking nick the money, so who fucking cares? You know, come back in. Just don't use on it. You know what I mean? Well, kind of, all it takes is, you know, 500 members to put an extra 50 pence in. That's that covered. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But it's not, you know, it's not that punishing. You know, I don't, you know, I think.
Don't sweat the small stuff. Don't sweat the small stuff, as it were.
Well, it taught me to be kind to myself. You know what I mean? Treat myself well, you know, and, you know, and then I can be kind to others, really. It's like I say, and I'll go back to this guy, you know, he did make an interesting point. He was at Edinburgh last year, or this year, I mean, and he said, oh, people are saying, they talk about self-medicating and stuff. Well, taking heroin ain't a medicine. Drinking isn't a medicine, you know what I mean? It just stops you dealing with stuff, you know, in a very pleasurable way. You can kind of put life on hold. If you're a procrastinator like me, heroin's about the best drug in the world, because you can put life off for 34 years going,
So that's what I was going to go on to. So is that what the swinging 60s offered you then? An opportunity to procrastinate?
You know, the music, you had the music, the
Of course.
politics, you had the Vietnam War, you had all that stuff going in Hungary. It was a real kind of groundswell of change, and then it got subsumed by the status quo, which they're very good at. You know, capitalism, that they started capitalizing on it, you know, because see, there's real money to be made in this movement.
Absolutely.
And they kind of just subsumed it and kind of nicked it off us.
I think that echoes for me the rave scene in more recent times. For those before the drugs dominated and money could be made, there was a freedom and entropy about what it meant. And then you had the criminal justice bill, was it 91, etc. And things changed. And people started moving in with, we can make money off this. Yeah.
Well, you know, like there's money in divide and rule, isn't there? There's the money. It's that's the business, you know. Keep us all on our toes.
Do you think that's the fear? People coming together.
Well, of course they're worried about that. Of course they are. They want us all kind of at each other's throat. I'm thinking 2024, and we're still killing each other.
Yeah.
You've got Israel and the Gaza. Like, well, who's right and who's wrong? You know what I mean? You know, you've got they've actually weaponized language now.
I couldn't agree more with you.
I'm thinking, well, we all kind of get on. Why wouldn't I? Fucking proper blows my mind. Really upsets me.
Okay, so tell me then. I am going back to the 60s, etc., to come forward and all that.
Yeah.
Did you observe casualties as a result of that? With the drug taking, etc.
Well, the few people died on their way by accident.
Okay. Did that impact you?
Not particularly. No, I wouldn't think so. No, I kind of, you know, I found a way of coping, and it suited me down to the ground. You know, I became a sort of a career addict, basically. I would say, you know, I had doctors in Harley Street, I had doctors in Croydon, I had a doctor in Clapham Junction, I had a doctor in West London. You know, I was known to services. You know, I knew my way around that system. You know, so I remember sitting in my house. There was about 3 of us, and we'd all picked up our prescriptions on this Monday morning. And then when we totaled it all up, it was about £4,500 worth of drugs. You know, so it wasn't a bad life. You know what I'm saying? You'd sell some of it. You know, everybody was kind of when we were kind of 60s, 70s, all, you know, the doctors kind of knew what was going on, because you go and, you know, all you had to go and see a doctor. Like then, he's got 40 junkies coming and seeing him on a daily basis.
It's ching for him.
Ching, all he does is write out a prescription. Oh, hello, Andrew. So nice to see you today. How are you? You know what I mean? You know. And, you know, they'd kind of make out that they're treating you in some way. But he's going Ching, isn't he? He's got
Absolutely.
He's got to be in there for 10 minutes. And then you'd go to the chemist, and the chemist, then you've got the script, and you go to the chemist, and he'll say, and you haven't got any money because you've given that to the doctor, right? So you've got no money, but you give him the script. He say, well, and he'll give you a third of the prescription because he knows you're going to go down the West End and sell it.
Wait a minute, they'd give you a third and keep the rest for themselves.
No, they'd give you a third first of all, so you could go and get the money. So I'd sell all my amps, pills, you know, and potions. I'd go and sell them. I'd get the money, and then I'd get my other 2/3 back.
Got
you know what I mean? So they all knew. You know, I remember, you know, like Ritalin. I remember Ritalin. People used to take it with ampules of Ficeptone. And I remember, like, there was a shortage. I think the government had put a downer on, you know, like started closing the Ritalin loophole down. And, like, you could get 100 Ritalin for 80p. Even on a private script, you'd only pay £1.50 or something. Then the chemist cottoned on. They put them up to 50p each after that. And because we're selling them for £5, we're thinking, all right, then fuck it, you know. And then they put them up to £1. So we're still making money, so we're not worried, you know. It was the same with lots of kind of drugs like that. They knew what we were doing. And, you know, and everybody was kind of washing each other's hands, you know, like I had chemists there. It was all first names and we all knew each other, and kind of everybody. There was a couple of famous chemists like that, you know. There was Bees, the chemist up in West London. There was Halls, the chemist on Shaftesbury Avenue, like the bloke. Because Gerrard Street, you could get Chinese heroin there, and you had to cook the heroin. And Halls would supply you with these little glass bottles to cook the heroin in. They kind of sell you the whole kit, you know. Like it was all quite. I thought, yes,
supply chains.
Yeah, everybody was kind of, you know, and they were really good. You know, I had a chemist up there, I called him Mr. Mac, a lovely fella. He always used to look after us. You know, if we get abscess, you know, you wouldn't have to go. He'd give you penicillin. He'd give you bloody, you know, like, and he'd kind of point you in the right direction. He was a really, you know, he was all right to us junkies. You know, let's have it. That's, you know, it was really.
Would you class yourself as a junkie?
Well, it's just you know, like, why not? You know, I'm not proud.
But why? But why?
Well, it's just a word, isn't it? It's junk.
Okay, you say that it's a word, but it's got connotations, the parlance of it.
Well,
you know,
it's all right, you know.
But the parlance
what would I call it? You know, like we was bang at it, mate. We used to sit into, you know, I was like the Egon Ronay of toilets down the West End. You know, I could tell you the best toilet with the best shells, with the best heating in it. You know what I mean? Yeah, you want to get down there, like, it's. I'm not that fucking precious. You know what I mean? I'm saying. You know, I'm not really easily offended. You can call me what you like. You know, my self-esteem's really high now, so I don't give a flying.
It feels Andy, it does feel that, you know, it does feel that.
You know, I'm not, you know, I'm not who I was then. But call myself a junkie. Why not? You know, what am I? Substance misuser, substance abuser. You know, how do you want to dress it up? You know, I'd do anything, you know, for a fix at some time. You know, I wasn't the worst.
Absolutely.
You
know. No, it's only because for me, there was an entrepreneurial zeal in terms of your modus operandi. You know what you wanted at the end of it, but you knew how to get that stage-wise.
Oh, yeah, I was very kind of successful, you know what I mean? You know, we did go out on little shoplifting forays and stuff like that, you know, like sometimes, like, man, do a little kamikaze here and then. But for many years, I would say, you know, like I had a stint of at least 14 years until I got kind of nicked. You know, just doing just doing the whole dance with doctors, you know, and that was just all on a gyro. So you get your gyro on the Thursday, see the doctor on the Friday, then you'd make some money off the drugs that he gave you. Then I had another doctor, so, you know, and it would just be that jolly dance. And I kept that going for at least 14 years without too much mishap. I think I did 2 stints in prison for shoplifting.
Okay.
And
how was it being in the big house for you?
Fuck all, is it, really? It was all right, wasn't it? There was nothing there, is it? It's not like it is. Nobody wanted to rape me, you know what I mean? I don't know why, because I was a lovely looking lad. You know what I'm saying? we all called each other, you know, we just all kind of, all right there, Jock, all right, Tap, all right, you know what I mean? All right, blah, blah, blah. We all got on, you know. I was quite, you know,
What was the longest stint in prison for you then?
Well, I just got unlucky on a remand. Nobody would bail me out. The longest period I did was 8 months, and that was murder. I kid you not. Because I've been given bail, and you're lying in your cell, you're lying in your Peter, you're lying, and every time somebody came to the door, you thought, I've been bailed.
You think it's for you?
I had 8 months of that, you know, 7-10 times a day. It drove me mental, you know what I'm saying? And nobody bailed me out, and then I did. And then it was time for my court appearance. But I could have, yeah, that was a really hard time. When you got, you know, longest I got was 6 months. I only ever did 3 months. You know, I was too slippery by far, really. Because I remember being down the West End, and what I'd always do is somebody will say, that people that know when I pick up my gear and all that, and they'll be waiting for me. And so they're saying, well, I'll have some blah, blah, blah. And when I went in the chemist, what I'd always do is the chemist would supply me I'd buy a load of syringes. And before I did the drug deal, I'd always give them a bag with the syringes in it. I'd say, there's some syringes here. And twice it happened. I'd already had their money and all that. But the only reason I gave them the syringes first is because if the old bill are watching, as soon as I pass over the syringes, they're going to nick us. And they'd come out of the woodwork and then nick. I'm saying, oh no, you just asked me for some syringes. I just, so I've got their money, and they're getting spun and taken down to West End Central. So I was a bit, I did that on 2 occasions. I had to laugh.
You were definitely slippery then.
Oh dear. But
but any regrets?
It was hard. Go on.
Any regrets, or do you just look back and laugh?
What is your regret? What am I going to regret? Adolf Hitler, I wasn't. Adolf Eichmann, I wasn't. You know what I mean? Yeah, no. I was just just making, just kind of,
by.
Pardon?
Just getting by.
Well, you kind of, quite nicely as well, though. We kind of, being a drug addict, if you kind of, never went hungry, always had, there was a few occasions where it was a bit kind of, ooh, and then it kind of just ran its course, really.
And when did you realize that this is not the life for me anymore? Well, what were the tipping points for you?
Well, it was, it was kind of, it was when the drugs kind of stopped working, really.
Okay.
They kind of, it all got. I got to do, and by that time I had a daughter by then, okay. I had a kid by then, and she got taken into care, and I thought, well, I got to do something about it. Got to start taking responsibility now, and then it kind of. I did a bit of treatment. I tried treatment when I was 30, and that was like a Christian rehab. That was interesting. They were
in
all
what sense?
Well, it was, that was the first time I think I thought, well, I like this. I like not using.
Okay.
I like having clean clothes. I kind of liked blah, blah, blah. But because it was a kind of a Christian gaff, it didn't really deal with the addiction.
Yeah. How old were you then?
30, about 29.
Okay.
And I thought, I like this. But they thought, I'm total abstinence because it doesn't matter to me, it doesn't matter. It's all the same shit, different bucket, whether it's alcohol, whether it's pills, whether it's cannabis, whether it's blah, blah, blah. It kind of, it does spin me out. Fags, even. If you see me with a fag in my mouth, I say, punch me in the head because that will take me out there. Because cigarettes is synonymous with, when you're, smoking. So like when I'm taking heroin, 20 to 30 a day. When I'm doing crystal meth, I'm on sort of 60 a day to reinforce it. Like cigarettes for me is kind of a real no-no. And it's just didn't, that was a part of my life. And it wasn't hell. It was just kind of run its course. It didn't, I didn't achieve much. I just managed to fuck about for 30 years,
okay,
with impunity, really. You know what I'm saying?
So you do this first rehab, this first treatment, and then what then?
And then I kind of, I joined a punk band because I used to play harmonica and sing. We was in a band called, 20 to 1. Used to do all these Ian Dury covers and stuff like that. So it was like a punk band. And then it all just started again, really. I remember going down to Castle, and I'd kind of, I'd come out of this treatment centre, and I've got back to South London because this was out in Hampshire. They were really decent people and all that. It was nice and all that. And I got that sense I liked this, but I didn't know how to stay clean. It's all right stopping, but staying stop was the one for me.
Absolutely.
I get back to London and the West End's calling. I get down to the Castle in bloody Tooting. Oh, he's back. All right, he's back. Get me in a headlock. He's back. After 2 pints of lager, I'm, I'm in the toilet having a, having a little hit, you know what I mean, just to celebrate, you know what I mean, just to, you know, I'll be all right. And
We've
I'm just
missed
on my way
it.
again.
I can handle it. I can handle it.
Yeah. And then you're on your way again. And then for the past, you know, like for the past how long, you know, so from the age of 40, like I say, I stayed clean for 7 years by going to meetings and that. Then I've kind of relapsed again on the back of an illness. I got a tumor on my spinal cord.
Okay.
But I'd kind of done the 12-step stuff, you know, going to meetings and stuff. And that really, you know, you don't kind of realize how powerful this illness is, you know. I can't use anything, you know what I mean, really. Like, it's just pointless. I can't just have a little, like, I can't, you know, other people, you know, sort of do it, but
it's all or nothing for you.
Well, yeah, it's, you know, well, it's all or something for me.
All or,
you know?
yeah.
Because
So
go on.
I was going to say, your daughter, she'll be what, 46 now, 45, 46 now?
No, my daughter now, my eldest is 39. I've got another daughter who's
Oh, I thought you'd had the daughter that when you were 30.
No, I was a little bit older. I was about 35, 36 when I had her.
Sorry. Okay.
And then I had another daughter after that. You know, when I cleaned up, I got into another relationship, and we had another daughter. So she didn't really see me using and stuff like that. But it, you know, it's all kind of gone good. It's amazing once you stop using, you know, like doing a bit of work on yourself, kind of saying, well, you know, accepting yourself, having that self, this is who I am, you know, there's nothing wrong with me, you know, like my motto is I'm doing my best. It's like you're doing your best, you know, and I see people on the comedy circuit, you know, they are doing their best, you know, but they, you know, still harming themselves and stuff like that. It is kind of, I think, you know, because I can, you know, if you can spot it, you know, you've got it. And I can see young guys, you know, but then they've got to find their own path through it, you know.
So you never take them to one side and give them a bit of Andy Zapp's wisdom or insights?
Not particularly. They've got to kind of want to do it themselves, you know what I mean? They'll know, you know, like you could have told me anything when I was, you know, when I was using, really. And until I was
squat diddly.
Well, it's just that you know, like, what do you know, mate? You know what I mean? You know, you've got to kind of feel it and do it for yourself, haven't you, really, Corey? You know what I'm saying?
What's your relationship like with your daughters?
Great. Yeah, great. Got 2 grandkids. Grandkids are doing their thing, you know what I mean? I've got an 18-year-old grandkid and a 14-year-old grandkid. That's my eldest daughter. They're all kind of she went to university, studied theatre and arts and stuff like that. She does a little, I don't know what she does. She sort of teaches it. And then my other one kind of just social media, the younger one, she's got a kind of consultancy. So they're all kind of, you know.
They're doing okay.
They're doing okay, yeah. I think everybody's got their own kind of journey to go. It's like I say, I'm doing my best. I'm there for them, you know.
100%.
Yeah.
Okay, just going back to your mum, you said she withheld her love. What did that teach you? What did that teach you as a father, as a parent then? When you're with your daughters?
Well, that kind of, you know, like physically I was irresponsible. You know what I mean? Emotionally, I was kind of didn't want to deal with stuff. You know, what can I say about my, you know, like I remember, like, you know, like I got really, when she died, I got really, you know, like it was a difficult relationship because she was really beautiful. My dad was in love with her, right? He was codependent, so she used to wrap him round her little finger, you know. And
looking back, do you think that your mum loved your dad?
I would think so, yeah. Well, she thought she loved it. You know, so they stayed together, they stayed together till the end. I remember I was about 20 and my mum and dad said, we're separating. And I thought, yes, fucking great. You know, I thought, yeah, that'd be great. You know what I mean? they're just no good for it. I felt they were no, like it was just, they were always arguing. It was always there, like blah, blah, blah. But they managed to stay together, and they stayed together till, I think my mum was 83 when she died, and my dad was 87 when he died. He died after her. And, but it was kind of difficult for them, like I can now see, that as an adult, I wish I'd had different conversations with them, but I wasn't kind of emotionally ready. I didn't have the information that I have now. They came, like my mother came from, like real wealth, real kind of ease, like could have been a fantastic life, in the war. And my father the same, like they had to, change it all around. And yeah, what I regret, and I remember when my mum died, I was still quite angry because she died as she lived, basically. I get the phone call, like just from my dad, oh, your mum's gone to hospital, like she's really ill. And when I got to the hospital, she was dead. You know what I mean? So there was no kind of reconciliation there. And I remember she was on the slab in the mortuary and we're kind of there. If my dad hadn't have been there, I would have weighed the fucking corpse in. I would have punched her a few fucking times. I thought, you fucking cunt. You know what I mean? I'm being, you just, that's how she was, like she did her own thing. Beautiful, this beautiful, beautiful woman, and that has it, and that has its own problems. Everybody fancied my mum, like, and she used to walk around during, she used to just walk around in during the week, like dressed up to the nines, we had a couple of businesses, we had, and she was always, it was always this front all the time, this kind of front. And my dad, I remember like she was kind of deteriorating. My dad saying to me, yeah, but she's still got great legs, isn't she? She's got great legs, isn't she? I'm thinking, you're fucking mad. You know what I mean? Like he couldn't see. And he'd kind of complain about her drinking and smoking and that, but he'd be the one that's supplying her with the drink and the smokes. You know what I mean?
It feels like it must have been really, especially as a 20, 22, 24-year-old, it must have been difficult for you then, observing all this, being worldly wise or becoming more so, and seeing the BS for what it was.
Well, it was from the point, but then, the drugs, it just took the edge off it, didn't they? Like, well, fuck it, who cares? Like, I was quite sorted, I'll go and see doctors, Dr. Feelgood.
Dr. Feelgood.
You know what I'm saying? I was quite happy there, all right. Well, you do what you're doing, and I was kind of, they did their best for me. I remember, like, and what I regretted, like what I came to realize as an adult, what I missed about is not having a relationship with my mummy.
Yes,
because she was never available. You know what I mean?
Yes.
That was what that's what I missed.
Yes,
not having that relationship. It was sad. I had a kind of more of a relationship with my dad, but then when he got really ill, and I've been the only son, he wanted me to top him because he was in a lot of discomfort and stuff like that. I say,
when you say top him, you mean kill him or
assisted suicide?
Yes.
And that was kind of difficult because I'm thinking I'm looking at a 9 here.
Yes.
Because who are they going to look at if you're found dead with a syringe in your arm? You know what I mean? They wouldn't have to look far. You know what I'm saying? Mind you, it might have been a kind of ended up in the Guardian and kind of might have done my career some good.
Might have had some celebrity status from it.
Yeah,
yes.
might. Yes, on second thoughts. But it was difficult. And then he kind of, it's that whole kind of addiction thing. It's nobody's fault. There's no blame there or anything. Like we all find our way through life. I just find by being gentle to myself and being true and not giving myself a hard time. And I do it through that process of, I go to meetings and, they say in a meeting, just keep coming back. You know what I mean?
100%.
Win with the stickers, and people are kind of really accepting of me, and and it is about just be nice, be kind to people.
100%. It doesn't cost anything.
Not at all.
Doesn't cost anything.
Not at all.
When you did spend your 8 months in prison on remand,
Yeah.
how were your folks with you?
Well, like it was more a kind of a. I remember the first time, like when I got nicked, and I'm in Brixton prison, and she could have bailed me out then. And she's there with her sunglasses and her big fur coat. She's had a few snifters, you know what I mean? And she's telling me it's going to do me good to be in prison, right? It'll do you good, right? And I've gone fucking mad. I've gone berserk.
Of course.
I've jumped up. I'm standing on the ledge where the screen is. I'm kicking the screen, trying to kick my mum. Now I'm trying to kick my foot through the screen and going, fuck off. Went mental, went absolutely mental. But she was, like, and I kind of understand. She was kind of, it's difficult, I think, like she was mental. I was mental. My dad was mental. My granddad was mental. Poor old granny, the other granny were all sitting there. But, it was a difficult dynamic.
Yes.
Watching my mum get, a lot of the time all she wanted to do was sleep because she was pissed. And then you can sort of see it, the deterioration. I can spot an female alcoholic from 1,000 miles. You know what I mean? I can just but on my Babs, who I talk about in the act, like she was a stripper from down the West End, sex worker, stripper, but she was an alcoholic. You know what I mean? She was a good old salt. You know what I mean? But it was that. Why am I attracted to that?
Was that a mother thing going on there, or was that a wanting to rescue?
Well, I don't know about rescue. You know what I mean? It's like Incognito says, what is it? Mental girl, dirty girl, he says. Used to have that joke. You say, yeah, because she was a bit mental. She was gorgeous, Babs. You know what I mean? Babs was lovely. She was a good old sort. She was very loyal. I remember her. Some bloke done me with a hammer once over a game of pool in a fish shop. She's gone in there the next day and stabbed him in the arse 3 times. You know what I mean? I thought, well, you can't have a better girlfriend than that. Yeah, you got to laugh, and it was all just stupid stuff. It's just silliness. She's gone. She was great, Babs. You know what I mean? She was a laugh, but when she got pissed, she was fucking hard work. You know what I mean? You couldn't reason. It's like my mother. I couldn't reason with her when she'd had a drink, But you couldn't reason with me when I was off my nut. So,
okay. And how did the folks take to your addictions?
Well, my mum didn't think she had a problem. She thought I was the problem, you know what I mean? Although she's kind of drinking every day and taking popping pills and smoking 50 fags a day and, Valiums and bottles of, vodka and I like another one. This is mental, right? My dad's codependent, right? So what my dad, he's like fucking Clouseau. So he's going around nicking all her hidden bottles and all that, right? And what he did, he lived in this big flash flat in Purley, and we had this big garage, and he's gone, oh, Andre, I want to show you something, right? And then that he's taken me in this garage, and there's all these boxes with half bottles of vodka in them, half bottles of scotch, unopened bottles of lager. Like there was loads of it. There were tons of it in there, that he'd confiscated from my mum that he'd actually paid for in the first place, right? So and he's got all this confiscated contraband. He was like, what do they call him? Like, he was like a customs and excise bloke, you know what I mean? And he's taken me in there, and he goes, you see, what I do, he says, I get Irena. He says, I get Irena and I bring her in here and I show her what an alcoholic she is. You know what I mean? She's most probably trying to dig tunnels in there, trying to get into there. It's all padlocked up. She can't get in there. Must have done her head in. I'm saying, you're mad. Why don't you just fucking pour it down the sink and fuck the bottles out? Oh, no, I've got to show her, the reminder what an alcoholic is. And then because he didn't understand that notion of codependency.
Yes.
Yeah, putting other people's needs in front of your own. You know what I mean? And I'm saying, you're mad. And then I kind of, You know, we did have the conversation later on in life about his codependency, because I got him a book called Codependent No More, but it was in Polish. And I kind of gave him a copy for Christmas, I think. You know, I said, have a look at this. And he kind of started getting it. But it was just, he was as mad as she was. You know, we were all kind of, you know, and families are like that. You know, some are more functional, some are more less functional, you know.
Show me a functioning family.
Yeah.
You know.
I don't know what you're like.
So when your father passed, how was that for you?
Well, I was kind of glad, really, because he was suffering. He'd suffered for about 2 years. So that was kind of, you know, when my mum passed, I was very, you know, I was upset by it, you know. First of all, I didn't kind of realise how upset I was. So I got into a relationship with this girl, and I kind of put all my just when my mum died, about 3 weeks later, I'd been single for a while. I'd been single for I don't know, some time, and then I met this girl, you know, and I started going out with her, and I didn't realise that I was grieving, and then I was so needy. She fucked off within about 9.5 weeks. She's left me.
Made a film out of it as well.
Could have done. She left me. And then I'm talking to this other friend of mine who's a psychotherapist, and she says, "Fuck all to do with her. This is to do with your mum." And then, because I'm just waking up in the morning crying every day, and it can't be this girl because I was only with her for 8 weeks, but I'd kind of made this dodgy connection. And then it kind of unraveled. It was all about my mum. You know what I mean?
Yes.
That, you know, like she was an important part. You know, she was, you know, on some level really kind of great to be there and blah, blah, blah. But, you know, it was a fraught relationship, you know. And when my dad died, you know, like he had this diverticular disease. And I remember, you know, he was asking me, can you kill me? Like we even phoned up Dignitas one day. I was with a friend of mine, and we're in his house, and he's phoned them up, and I've got through to Dignitas, and I'm saying, well, blah, 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 you know, blah, what's the blah? And then my dad grabs the phone from me, and he starts shouting at the woman in Dignitas. He said, look, I want you to kill me. Do you understand? I want you to kill me. I'm fed up of... And she goes, Mr. Zappler, she said, this is not Tesco's or Safeways. And she really told him off, and it was just kind of really weird. But he's kind of insisting that, you know, he just wanted, because he was he couldn't eat, and this food would get stuck halfway down here, and he'd just be passing out. And he says, they keep reviving me. And they did that to him in hospital for a while. And then he went mental in hospital on one during visiting time. He's just on his hands and knees on the bed like a dog, just on it. They're just screaming, I want you to kill me. And they actually did that. That's what they did in the end. They did. But it was all in the time of Rosemary Aylett and Shipman, where they were really kind of worried about their kind of, how they look in that. Because they weren't before, you know, they would help people pass, you know, with a few injections and all that. But they were kind of a bit loath to do it. He just got wrapped up in the political climate of the medical establishment at the time.
Of course.
But then, you know, like he did, then they did kind of give me, it was like, I went, you know, I remember they phoned me up. He said, he's on his way, he's dying. I get there, they've given him a blood transfusion and a bit of gear, a bit of heroin, and he's happy as Larry. But he's saying to me, in 3 hours, I'm going to feel like shit. I don't know why they're doing this, you know. So, yeah, very kind of, and for the past 26 years, all I've been doing is just been having a really nice time. Been clean and serene. It's just been, you know, I've got a wonderful partner. She's great. We just laugh all the time. And, you know, I managed to, I was a psychiatric outreach worker for a homelessness charity for many years. I enjoyed that. And so, yeah, through the, you know, I went to a fellowship called ACA, Adult Children of Alcoholics. That's another one. That's a useful one for people if you come from a dysfunctional family.
Adult Children of Alcoholics.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
That taught me a lot. You know, I kind of do the druggy one, and but that was really kind of, that kind of taught me to be kind of gentle with myself. You know, you got to be gentle with yourself. You know that, you were given some dodgy messages and stuff like that, and it's nobody's fault, but kind of you've got to kind of find your way through it, and how you're kind to yourself, how you treat yourself. You know, try and eat well, it's an interesting journey. It's been an interesting journey for me. You know, I used to get terribly paranoid, but that was all drug induced. You know, all my mental health problems are kind of drug induced. You know.
And on that, did you ever contemplate suicide?
Oh, a few times, yeah. I was shit at it though, suicide. I had a couple of lucky breaks. I had one lucky break, and it was all just by an accident because I'm off my head. I remember I had to go and see this probation officer for some shit that I'd been done for, and I remember, I'd taken a couple of the mandrax, because
Yes.
and I'd taken 3 or 4, and in the winter, because your blood circulation's slow, the pills don't tend to work so quickly. So I had a few more, and then I've got home, and I'm remembering I was only about 19 then, and I'm thinking, I've had a good innings. I'm just off the head going thinking I've had a good innings. Yeah, fuck it. And I mean, I've gone wallop, and I've done 80 of them like crash. And then luckily my mate Lawrence phones me up. I go, all right, Lowell. Oh, yeah. I've just dropped 80 mandies. Oh, you won't see me anymore after this. And, I've had a good innings, Lowell, and I'm doing all this. And what's he done? He's phoned my dad up at the shop, and my dad's come round. You know what I mean? I'm unconscious when he's got there, so that wasn't nice for him. So I put my parents through stuff. You know what I'm saying? But but that was an accident. That was, just because my mind had been altered by the drugs that I took, and I didn't really feel like it just seemed like a good idea at the time. And then I end up in St. James's Hospital, furious as fuck that I'm still alive. You know what I mean? I was so fucking annoyed that I was alive. I said, "What fucking no?" I mean, nobody asked you to fucking bring me around and all that. It was kind of just, it was just how incongruous it all was. It was
Absolutely.
Just, and then my parents came and see me. I said, would you fuck him? I was really rude to them and quite obnoxious, because I must have been quite unhappy at the time. But
you were
angry, unhappy, but because I wasn't dealing with this stuff, because I was kind of just using on it and felt it didn't really matter, and that's the thing you take, once the drugs stop working, you have to kind of face yourself.
Was that difficult, facing yourself?
Not particularly. Once you can't, because it's not an intellectual process, really. You have to kind of just start living in a decent kind of way. You start, like what I liked about the fellowships is, like you can do, I was a tea person at a meeting for 2 years, making cups of tea for people, and you kind of feel valued, and you kind of heap that value on yourself, and you do a bit of work on yourself. You sponsor people, help people through, like I've got people, people have come up to me and thanks, mate, thanks. You really, I'm still clean as a result of the talk you gave, or I'm still clean because you sponsored me all those years ago and you guided me through this. And I've got people, in my life now that, I'm very close to that, clean for, 10, 12 years. I've got some bloke clean. He's clean now for 7 years, like it's kind of, we're in the business of saving lives, really, in the 12-step fellowship. And we do, like, 100%. And it kind of gives you some kind of meaning. So it's kind of, but, just, take yourself out of self, really. It's not, it is a selfish program, but it's kind of selfless as well. I've got to look after myself. And when I know how to look after myself and I can be decent to myself, I can be of service to others. I can be kind,
It's interesting. It's interesting you say that. What does love mean to you?
Love. What does love mean to me? I think, like being being good to myself, you know, being kind, you know. Yeah, love means, you know, like doing what you're going to say you're going to do, being kind to people, but most of all, like having the ability to kind of look after myself without harming others. You know, that I, you know, but then, you know, like my dad says, you've never been tested, mate. You know, I mean, you've never gone hungry, son. So you don't fucking know. You know what I'm saying? It's a very kind of interesting. I was brought up in the best time in history, really.
Yeah.
You know, after they had 2 world wars, so like I missed that, I dodged that. Dodged the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
You know, and I just did what I wanted to do for, you know, and I'm still doing it now, really. So I'm really lucky.
I'm gonna ask you. I think you've already told me anyway, but who's the most important person in your life?
Who's the most important? Me. I'm the most important person in my life.
Bingo.
Of course.
Bingo.
And then there's Kath. There's Kath the bird.
Yeah.
She's great.
How long have you been together?
Oh, about 20 or 25, 24 years, 23 years.
You married her?
No, fuck that.
Why not?
She didn't want to marry me. She didn't want to marry me. She didn't want to marry me. She lived in her own flat in East London. She's only moved in about a year and a half ago. We've only started living together. You know what I mean?
Is that to take care of you?
Well, we can't take care of each other. We take care of it. We get a lovely hug in the morning. Get the hugs in the morning. Cups of coffee with what's the name? With lion's mane mushroom and fucking lovely. No, we get on great. You know, we laugh at each other, laugh a lot. Laughter's very important for me. You know, just it's too serious to be serious. You know, this has been lovely. You know, I mean, I'd like to interview you now.
I'm going to ask you the question: if you had one bit of advice for your 12-year-old self, what would it be?
Keep your mouth shut. Yeah.
And on that note, deandyzapp,
thank you.
You've been a brilliant, brilliant guest. The Hurt Locker is a safe space for our guests to openly share their mental health experiences. If you have been affected by any of the content in this recording, then please reach out for support. If it is an emergency, dial 999. If you would like to talk to somebody today, then please call the Samaritans on 116 123. Stay safe.